Today I'm going to be showing you how to use the TASCAM Portastudio 424 Mark II, which is a 4-track cassette tape recorder. I'm going to walk you through in detail how to record a song with multiple overdubs, bounces, and export it to your DAW. So, if you want to learn how to create multi-track cassette recordings, this video is for you. A few things to note before you start recording. First of all, to turn the unit on is back here, and I set the tape speed to high, which is going to give me the best audio quality out of the cassettes. I also recommend setting this switch in the back to the middle position, which is going to turn the DBX noise reduction on. So you can see I've turned that on. As far as the actual cassette tapes, TASCAM recommends using high bias type 2 tape, 90 minutes or less for best sound quality on this particular device. There's also type 1 tape, which you can use, but it doesn't sound quite as clear and high fidelity as the type 2. I recommend the type 2 tape, at least if you're going for a really clean sound. These are readily available at an estate sale near you. The other thing to note is that there's no phantom power on this unit, so if you have a condenser mic that you want to use, you'll need an external preamp. I have an ART Tube MP with phantom power, so I can power up my condenser mic. Lastly, I would highly recommend referencing the manual as you're getting started. I've linked it below. It really is helpful in kind of making sure you know exactly how to navigate this machine. So the first thing I like to do when getting ready to record a cover or a song is I like to chart it out so I know kind of what the parts are. On a 4-track, it's really crucial to kind of figure out in advance where each instrument's going and what your overdub schedule is going to be. So I've got that charted out here. I'm ready to go. I'm going to put the reference track onto track 4. I have this 1/4-inch cable coming out of the Focusrite headphone jack. Nothing fancy there. This is going to get erased over. I just want something to play along to. So this is going into track 4. You're going to set your input to mic line, which is all the way to the left. Set your track fader to 7, in between 7 and 8, but I usually start at 7. Set your master fader to same thing, 7 and 8, but I'll start at 7. And then you can adjust your trim as well. I'm also going to set my pan to the far right. So I've switched that all the way to the right. And since I'm recording on track 4, under the record function section, I'm going to switch this down to bus R track 4. So the combination of this with the pan to the right is telling the mixer to record onto track 4. You also need to set your monitor, so here's monitor section, the right monitor, press it all the way to the right. That's going to put signal into your headphones, which you can control with the level knob here. Now I'm going to play, let's see if I get sound. And I'm getting the original recording. It's averaging about 0 with peaks in the 6, which is perfectly good. Okay, I'm going to put a tape in and record this onto the tape. Put this in. In order to record, you just hit record and play. I'm going to let this play for several seconds so that there's just a lead-in time, and then I'm going to hit play on Logic, and that's going to start the recording. I added some stick clicks so that I have a count-in when I go to play along with it. In order to play it back, I'm going to hit this button here, which is RTZ, return to 0. That's going to set the counter back to 0. And on the TASCAM, you have to monitor back using this tape cue system. So to set that up, you're going to turn this switch here to the right to tape cue. You're going to turn this switch to the right, tape cue, and then you're going to turn these 3 other monitor switches to the left, which is off. And then you'll see here in this effects send area, effect 1, effect 2 / tape cue, which is this bottom knob. That's going to control your monitor level, and I will be able to hear what I've recorded on this track by turning that tape cue on. That's really important when you're doing overdubs, because if you don't use the tape cue, whatever you've recorded here will just record right onto the new track, which you may not want. Sometimes you do want that, but In this case, I'm going to be recording drums, and I don't want the reference track being recorded onto that. So I've got this turned on. I can press play, and I can hear the track back, and I can control how much of that I want using this knob. So I'm getting ready to play the drums onto track 1. I'm using 2 microphones, so I'm using a condenser mic that's being powered through the Tube MP. It's going onto track 1, and then a kick mic, which is going onto track 2. Both of these are going to be recording onto track 1. So I'm going to set my input to mic line on both of these all the way to the left, set the pan on both tracks all the way to the left. That's telling the mixer again to record onto track 1. I'm going to set my record function to track 1 plus L, so pushing this down. That's going to arm the track, and I'm going to turn my monitor section, turn left to monitor. So this is all the way to the right. The other 2 should be off. That way I can monitor when I'm playing on the drums, and I'm going to adjust my tape cue so that I can hear the reference track. I also am going to adjust the EQ. I'm going to probably do a couple of practice takes just to make sure the balance between these 2 mics is good. I'm going to adjust the EQ on the front end. That's going to record that EQ onto tape, and then I can further fine-tune it once it's recorded. Another thing I want to mention is I'm going to use the effects send. I'm running the effects send into my Fender Princeton Reverb amp, and I'm going to utilize the reverb so I have a little bit of ambiance on the stuff I'm recording. Right here is effects send 1. So this 1/4 inch is coming out into the input on my guitar amp, and then I'm going out of the speaker output on my amp here. So this is coming out of my amp back into the TASCAM onto input 5. There's actually 2 effect sends. I'm just using 1, so this is utilizing effect send 1. This is 5 and 6. So I'm going to turn this to left, right, which is going to actually like print the effect onto the recording. I'm going to set the level here to roughly there. It kind of depends on what the effect is, but you want some signal going out to the effect. And then I'm going to bring in as much of the effect as I want using effects 1, this knob here. If I do it right, I can hear it in the headphones. There we go. Sometimes it's kind of janky, and I have to wiggle the knobs a little to get it to work. There it is. So now I have some reverb in the headphones. You can also set this to mon, which means you'll hear it in the headphones, but it won't record the effect. And then you can bring it in later when you're mixing and whatnot. On to the drums. I decided I want to actually have the effects only be in monitor mode, so I'm going to add the effect in when I'm bouncing it down, which I'll show you in a minute. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to try one more take. One of the problems with this machine is every so often it'll be playing great, and then you'll hear the tape kind of cut out and come back in, which is very annoying. It's very tape of it, but it kind of does it randomly. So I'm going to try it again and see if I can get a full take without any of those tape dropouts. Okay, I got the drums where I like them on track 1, and next up I'm going to do the bass on track 3. I'm going to be able to use the same channel strip here to send the bass to track 1, so I don't have to move this around. I plugged the bass into this preamp here, took out the microphone, and I connected the bass. I've got this more or less set for the bass. I've EQ'd this generally to where I like it for the bass. I feel like the high end never really like lands on the tape the right way, so I really cranked it to try and get some of that. Especially when I bounce it down, it loses some of that high end, so I've got to add it on the front end. To get this signal going, I've got my input set to mic line, so same as before, this is to the left. I'm going to turn my tape cue up, so that lets me hear the drum track in the monitor without it recording onto the bass track. I'm going to set my record function to safe, and I'm going to arm track 3. So I'm going to move that down to bus L track 3, and that bus L is telling me to put the pan all the way to the left, which it already was in this case, so all the way to the left, and that's going to send this signal to track 3. I don't need to mess with anything here, it's all coming from this channel strip. So now I'm going to record the electric guitar solo, which is going on to track 2. So I'm still going to utilize this first channel strip, and I'm going to send it to track 2, make sure this is on mic line. I'm going to move the pan to the right. It's almost like it's pointing to it, right? And I'm going to put track 3 in safe mode. Track 2, I'm going to flip it to bus R, and that's going to tell the mixer to send the signal to track 2. This solo only happens for basically a verse towards the end of the song. So I'm going to fast forward to that section. I'm going to reset my counter so I can return to 0. When I change it to the right here, I have to switch the monitor from left, so that's going off in the left position, to right. So this is right mon going to the right position. Now I can hear what's happening on this channel. I'm going to monitor with my tape cue. So I'm going to monitor the drums here and the bass here. Everything's still just its own single track. We haven't bounced anything down yet, which will be coming up after the guitar solo. But right now, the guitar solo. Now we get to the point where I'm going to be bouncing the drums and the guitar solo onto track 4, which is going to delete the reference track. And I'm going to also be playing the tambourine live. So remember, every time you bounce down, you get kind of a freebie extra track that you can record live with the pre-recorded. And it's going to land on track 4, like so. Now, in order to actually do the bounce, you're going to turn the input on any of the channels you want to bounce to tape. So I'm turning this to the right, to tape. Track 2, I want to go to tape. And since I want these on track 4, I'm going to turn track 4 down to bus R on the record function here. And because it's bus R, I'm going to make sure my panning is to the right for these 2 tracks. And it's really important to get the balance exactly the way you want it. It might take a couple practices to get that balance, because once it's recorded and you record over this other stuff, you can't go back. So I do several mixes down to this track to make sure that everything's sounding good. I'll do like a little section and make sure it sounds good. I kind of lied before. This is the one instance where you have to, as far as I know, I have to move my microphone to an open track. Since these are on tape, I can't use the mic line. So I'm going to move it to track 3, set this to mic line, make sure this is on record. That's where my tambourine is going to be going. I also, at this point, have my effects sends. I'm going to mix in a little bit of that reverb so that the final recording on track 4 has some of that nice ambiance. Let's give it a try. The tambourine, drums, and guitar solo have all been bounced down to track 4. It's all coming out of track 4. The balance is pretty good. There's one like minor part where the volume drops for maybe a half a second, and I did it a few times to try and have it not do that, and it kind of did it every time. So that's one of the quirks of recording with tape. I think once every other part is on here, you won't really be able to hear it unless you're really listening to it. Next up, I'm going to record the 2 guitar parts. So I'm going to start with guitar 1 on track 2. So this is recording over the guitar solo that was here. After that, I'm going to do guitar 2 while I'm mixing these down. So let's start with guitar 1. I just finished the guitar 1, which is on track 1 here. I have bass, and I've got drums, tambourine, and the guitar solo eventually. So at this point I'm going to take the guitar and bass and bounce them down to track 1. Once again, I'm going to be playing the guitar or like another part live. So these are pre-recorded. I'm going to be playing guitar 2 live while these are bouncing down. So to bounce it down, you're going to make sure that all the tracks you want bounce down. So in this case, guitar and bass, set them to tape. I'm going to put this in safe mode, and I'm going to arm track 1 because I want them to go to track 1. So they're in tape. Track 1 is bus L, so I'm going to turn these to the left, turn all of the ones I want to go to track 1 to the left. I'm going to be recording guitar on this input 1, so this is going to stay on mic line. This is going to be panned to the left. I'm going to set this to about 7. And then I'm going to get the mix of the bass and guitar exactly where I want, as well as the EQ. Again, when things bounce down on this particular TASCAM, there's a lot of loss of like high end and just overall depth. So I try to crank certain frequencies so that I can hear them on the bounce down. So I'm going to do a couple practices to get the mix right, and then I'm going to play the guitar with it so that it all lives on track 1. Okay, I've successfully bounced down the guitar, bass, and added the second guitar to channel 1 here. And now it's time to add the lead vocal on track 2. I'm using this channel strip, first channel strip. I'm going to send it to track 2 here by turning this to the right, engaging track 2 bus R. Now you can see that track 2 is active and ready to go. I'm going to make sure my tape cue is on for tracks 1 and 4 here, so I can monitor the rhythm track, and I'm going to turn my monitor switch to the right and the other 2 off. Woke up this morning with light in my eyes, and then realized it was still dark outside. Now I'm going to put the harmony on to track 3. Basically the same process as before. Hey, Mr. Spaceman! So now it's time to mix the track and export it into Logic. So I have a Logic session set up with 2 tracks, just a stereo, a right and a left. I have these RCA cables up top that are coming out of the Portastudio into my Focusrite, which is going into Logic, and that's going to give me a stereo mix out of here. There's several ways to mix and export on this unit, but this is my preferred method for now. You can also use the inputs on the back here to take a isolated feed of each track and then mix it in Logic or whatever DAW you want to use. I happen to like the stereo mix coming out of this just because it imparts some sort of sound on it that's different than what I can get on Logic. It just sounds more cohesive, and it's just kind of fun to use the limitations of only this device. So when you're mixing it, you're going to want to turn your monitors to the right position, so left and right all the way to the right. Turn all of your tracks to tape, so this will allow them to play out of the stereo output. And then it's kind of up to you. You have the 4 tracks, so let me play some of this. So I've got my guitars, which I'm gonna pan left like the original recording. I've got the drums, which I'm gonna pan right like the original recording. And I have my vocals. Something I also like to do, as we saw before, I have my effects send still going with reverb. Mr. Spaceman, I'm going to turn these tape cues off. Woke up this morning, I was feeling quite weird. And then this is the point too where I will EQ each track so that I get the sound I want. And once I have a mix I like, I will record the signal coming out of here into Logic. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Click the link below to hear the final song, and let me know if you have any questions in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.